I realized that I do a lot of talking about stroke recovery on the podcast with people, and I share a little bit of my story there. It's where people hear what I've got to say, but it's always broken up in a way where they don't get the full picture. And that's not a bad thing in a podcast, because the podcast is about the other person. But I wanted to share a little bit about my journey with stroke recovery. Let me just put the alarm on as I head out, because the people that I come across often assume that my stroke condition is not that bad, and sometimes it's an issue that they think that perhaps they should be at my stage of their stroke recovery and they should be there really quickly. But I've been on this journey since 2012, and when I'm recording this, it's just past the 13-year mark in 2025. So today's been an interesting day, and I'm at home and I'm doing the kind of work that somebody might do in an office. So I've taken a step back from my property maintenance business. Instead of being on the tools, I've taken an administrative role where I try to ensure that the guys that work with me have an ample amount of work to keep them busy full time. One of them is my son, the other one is my business partner. We're a proper small business, we don't turn over multiple millions of dollars a year. We turn over enough money to keep everyone employed and earning a decent living. So my job is to be at home and be productive. And today I'm feeling really guilty because I haven't been productive at all. I haven't managed to get any work done because I woke up feeling fatigued, like I can't concentrate, and no matter how much time I spend in front of the computer trying to get the work done, what's happening is I'm falling asleep in front of the computer and my brain is hurting me. That hurt that stroke survivors describe, which is not real pain, but it's kind of like a strange pain. And it hurts because I can't describe it any other way. I don't know how to describe it. It's a feeling of overwhelm. It's a feeling that sort of starts in the back of the eyes and takes over the entire head. And I don't know what the point of it is, other than to tell me that I shouldn't be doing that work. But that's what I'm employed to do. That's what I'm supposed to do, not resting. And after 13 years of not earning a decent income, I want to be in a position where I can catch up a little bit on the income that I haven't received while I've been unwell, recovering from 3 brain injuries and brain surgery, and then learning how to walk again. So it's an interesting thing to experience, and I haven't really been able to get my head around it, and I haven't been able to work out what to do so that I don't feel bad when I'm finding fatigue. I know what I should do. Like, I tell people that on the podcast. I encourage people all the time to not be hard on themselves, etc. But look, it also happens to me, and I can't always be positive. I maybe can be on the podcast to an extent because we're trying to motivate people and encourage people, but it's not possible for me to always be in a positive mindset. It's quite sunny out here today, so I hope you don't mind me wearing my sunglasses. The sun is also something that overwhelms my brain and can create neurological problems. So sunglasses are very important. I found that sunglasses are really important even on cloudy days. In fact, they're more important on cloudy days because somehow the way the light reflects through the clouds really fatigues my brain. So instead of sitting in front of the computer and getting nothing done, I thought I'd be productive and go for a walk and take you guys with me and just share a few things that I've been experiencing. One of the challenges I face is that people assume that I'm fully recovered because I don't look like someone who had a stroke. And typically I walk, quote unquote, like a normal person. And while that's definitely a good thing and I'm grateful for that, it's really hard to describe to people what I'm going through. It's really hard to tell them what it feels like to be me. And not that I need people to know to feel sorry for me or anything like that, but I definitely need to tell them when I'm not up to doing something or I'm not in a position to participate in an activity or a sport in something as enthusiastically as they would want to participate in it. I'm walking now, and every step I take, I can feel my left leg on the ground, barely through the shoes. But it refers all the way, like it's so tight on that left side because of spasticity and because of the way that the muscles are these days. It's so tight that I can feel the walking in the back of my head, like just in this space here in the back of my head. And it's really bizarre because I don't know what to do about that other than to just experience it. And then how do you explain that to somebody when you're walking? I can feel each step in the back of my head. When I'm walking, that creates more fatigue, that requires more energy. And that makes walking harder because I never noticed that on my other side. I never noticed it before stroke. I notice it now. And that's a really weird thing to notice. And then my left side feels like it's already done 20 laps of this block that I'm going to walk. But my right side doesn't feel like it's even started. And there's always that imbalance that I experience, the imbalance between how my left side feels and how my right side feels, and I'm always trying to get my head around it. And sometimes I have to tell my left side, I don't believe you. You are not tired. You just think you're tired. You're fake tired because the right side is not tired because we haven't done enough to be tired. So you are not tired, so you have to keep going. Even if it hurts, you have to keep going. And that tends to work for me. The recovery afterwards isn't too bad, but it doesn't make things like walking that enjoyable, and I look for excuses to stop doing it, especially on warm days where the weather makes it a little bit harder under normal conditions for quote unquote normal people to walk. So it's really interesting. One of the other challenges that I have is that when people don't get you, they don't understand how you feel after a stroke, the only way they'll ever understand how you feel is if they go through something similar. And let's face it, that's not what we want people to do. We don't want them to feel what we feel. I mean, you wouldn't wish stroke on your worst enemy. Why would you want people to feel how you feel so that just they can understand you? It's a problem when you've felt you've been misunderstood in the past, when you've thought that people don't understand you. Like, it's one of those things that we all go through from time to time. I feel misunderstood, or people don't understand me, or I can't explain to people what's going on in my mind. And then if you felt like that under normal conditions, it's pretty common for you to feel that way after stroke. Not only were you misunderstood before, now you have got even less chance of explaining to people how you feel. And it's a bit of a problem. So I find myself dealing with it in a couple of different ways. Sometimes I won't engage in a conversation with somebody who asks me about how I feel or who assumes that I'm great because I look okay. I just don't go into the conversation too deeply, and I answer questions generally. I'll say things like, if they ask me how I am, I'll say things like, I'm okay. And if they ask me how you're going after the stroke, I always say I'm okay. And I'm doing really well, and I've recovered really well. But I don't go into too much detail because that's really what they want to hear. They don't really want to hear anything else. They just want to hear that I'm okay and that I'm going well. And that kind of allays the concerns that they have about me. And I don't want people to be concerned about me. Everyone goes through something difficult in their life, so I'm no different. And I don't think you can get through life without going through difficult things. Nobody comes out of life unscathed. So I think it's okay for me to just tell people that I'm okay and leave it at that. Now, other times, if it's the right person, I go into a bit of detail. We might have a little bit of a heart-to-heart or a deep and meaningful, and that's good because that's also necessary, having a heart-to-heart and a deep and meaningful from time to time. And I love doing that with the right people. And when you do that, it's a good release. But I've got to pick the people that I do that with, because some are not equipped to have deep and meaningfuls and heart-to-heart conversations. So I try not to burden people, the wrong people, with too much information. And that seems to be fair to them and fair to me, because it takes a lot of energy for me to explain what I go through. And if it's landing on deaf ears, well, there's no point in that. There's no point taking people through that type of a conversation when they're not really interested, or when they're afraid to be interested, or it makes them question their own mortality or their own health or ill health or all sorts of things. So sometimes that's the approach I take. And other times I just seek out counselling. I go to people who are paid to sit there with me for an hour, to listen to what I've got to say, without judgment, without advice, without opinions, and just to let me vent and get it off my chest. So I find that to be really helpful also, but that's not something I do all the time. I used to go to counselling once a month, and I found myself doing that less and less these days. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the need has decreased, so I go less often. If the need increases, I'll go more, and I'll do more counselling, and that's okay. I had a massive wake-up call almost 9 months ago now, because of my deficits on my left side and the numbness and the tingling and the way that the left side feels and the way that it fatigues. I was at work and I climbed on the ladder because we installed a scaffold at this particular job we were doing to make sure that the job was safe, so nobody had any falls off the ladder. And I was climbing the ladder to the first level of the scaffold to do a little job at the end of the day. And I was really tired and fatigued. And I was holding a paintbrush and a paint bucket with one hand, which is something I always do, and I was climbing up with the other hand. And it wasn't far to go. It was only 3 or 4 rungs, and I was going to place the paintbrush and the bucket on the landing and continue climbing up the rest of the way. And then what happened was, as I was doing that, as I was getting a little bit higher to just sneak above the landing and place my brush down, my left hand let go of the ladder without me realizing. And I'm kind of smiling and laughing about it now. It was no laughing matter, let me tell you. And what happened was, I end up falling backwards onto a metal bar of the scaffold, and I hurt my back. I really hit my back hard. And then from the metal bar that I hit, I had about another 3 feet or a meter to go further down to the ground and land flat on my back on the deck. So I hit my back about a metre off the ground, and then I hit it again on the ground. And let me tell you, it wasn't pleasant, and I was bruised and battered, and I didn't know how I got down there, and I was a bit winded, and it took more than 3 weeks to recover. Thankfully, I didn't break anything, but it was a big wake-up call because my left hand decided to let go, and I had no say in the matter. And that's one side of my deficits that people don't see. I also drop a lot of things on my left side because of the same reason. So it was very interesting to experience that and get away with it. Wow, was it really, it was really good to get away with it. I mean, a lot of people don't get away with that. I know people who have injured themselves far worse falling from smaller heights off of ladders than I did. So I am very grateful. You know, which brings me to the point of my definition of my recovery, you know, the what. When I say I've recovered to people, you know, what does that mean? I've changed my definition. Initially, I thought that recovery should be something that happens fully. I go back to who I was before stroke. Now, not the ill-informed version of me before stroke, not the guy who smoked and drank and did all of that, but, you know, before my deficits existed and before the blood vessel burst, where I was oblivious of what it was like to need to know how to walk, to pay attention to every step, to feel the step that I'm taking in the back of my head, you know, to feel the wind on a cold day hurting my skin, and to feel annoyed when my wife touches my left hand because she's being nice and all I can feel is burning and irritation. I thought that that's what I was going to do. I thought I was going to go back to normal. And then you hear about this new normal that you have to accept. And that's kind of where I'm at. I've accepted this new normal where I am fully healthy because the blood vessel in my brain doesn't exist anymore. The one that bled will not bleed again. And the risk of me having another stroke has dropped dramatically. So that's a good thing, which means I'm healthy. I'm fully out of the woods with that part of the situation, but I am still living with these deficits, and these deficits are just part of everyday life, and they don't go away. And when I wake up in the morning, they're always there. Even though I might forget that they're always there, they are always there. Let me just show you this on my walk. Look at this amazing orange door. Look at that, that's beautiful. This is my neighborhood. So I think that's my new definition of recovered, fully recovered, is my body feels like this. It's always going to feel like this. It's never going to change. Some days it feels worse, other days it feels better. And when it's feeling worse, I need to attend to it. I need to rest. I need to get more sleep. I need to do less activities. And perhaps I need to go and get a massage and make sure that the muscles are released and that I do some self-care. So, yeah, I'm fully healed, but with scars. That's it. That's the best way to describe it. Fully healed with scars. And it's no different to somebody being fully capable of living a regular life with a knee injury or an elbow injury or missing a limb or whatever their injury is that they've had to live with their entire life. So, yeah, I'm fully healed. People always ask me for advice. I get a lot of requests for advice. What do I do now? Any tips for this and any tips for that? And it's like, my stroke is so different to yours, and I'm such a different person than you that making those types of comments are probably not helpful. Although I understand why people ask, because they want some guidance and they want to decrease the amount of time that it takes for them to go through their recovery. So I do have some tips to offer people, and that's be curious about what you need to do next to improve your recovery. Always learn, never stop learning. Spend as much time as you possibly can learning about what you need specifically for your body and your stroke and your brain and your injury to recover and get better. Because you're the person who has to be responsible for that recovery. You're the person who has to be in charge of it, even though it's hard, and even though you're dealing with an injured brain, and even though you don't have all the resources. You need to find ways to deal with your own version of your injury and your own version of your recovery. Be kind to yourself. And I suppose that's a reminder for me as well, is to be kind to myself. And when computer productivity is not possible, come out and be productive in another way, because it's a real big desire of mine to be productive, and this is helping me overcome that issue that I've had about my productivity or lack thereof on certain days, when the fatigue is against me and when stroke is doing what it does rather than me doing what I do, rather than me taking charge of my particular day or my life. When stroke takes charge, find a way to do a workaround, find a way to achieve your goals in a slightly different way. Anyway, I hope you found this little walking vlog insightful, and thanks for listening. If you like this type of content, subscribe, leave a comment below, and if you are interested in episodes from stroke survivors sharing their journey on the Recovery After Stroke podcast, a new episode comes out every Monday, and they're interviews with people who have had a stroke and want to share their story in the hopes that they will help somebody, but they also find the interviews that we do cathartic, just like I do. They really help.